Next step. I pick up a different colored piece of chalk. Very important step. Now I'm going to say define C1 to be the result of calling make count. What's the current environment? Who thinks it's E1? Who thinks it's G? Yes, it is. It's G, because we're back at a scheme prompt. Anything you type at a scheme prompt is evaluated in the global environment. So where am I going to put the name C1? In the global, in the frame G, right here. But I can't do that yet. First, I have to call make count. This is a procedure call, so it makes a frame. This is a lambda with no formal parameters, and the call has no actual argument expressions. So what goes in the frame? Nothing, except we'll give it a name. It doesn't really have names. It's just helpful when you're talking about them to do that. So this is an empty frame. Well, that's stupid. What's the point of having an empty frame? Well, it might matter, for example, if we do a define inside this procedure when we call the procedure. So we might want to define something in here. Or, I'm sorry, I mean in this procedure call. The procedure call that we're doing right now could start with a define. And then I would put a binding in here. But also, it just doesn't pay to, when you're interpreting a language, to put in code to check for the special case of an empty frame. It takes just as much time to do that check as it takes to make the empty frame. And since the frame is empty, it doesn't take up much space. So empty frame. Extending what? G or E1? Who thinks it extends G? Remember, G is the current environment. Who thinks it extends E1? OK. Everybody has to vote. Who thinks it extends G? Who thinks it extends E1? I think it extends E1. Why? The rule is we're making a frame because we're calling a procedure. What procedure are we calling? This one, this procedure. How do we know what frame, what environment to extend? We look at the right bubble. It points to E1. OK? Now, remember I said last time you have to kind of cut your brain in half? So you have to think like that. Never mind what you think is plausible. Just follow the rules with one side of your brain. So I'm going to make this frame extend that one. OK, now turn on the other side of your brain. Way down in the body of this lambda, like, for example, here, we're going to make reference to the variable glob. What variable do we mean? Well, we mean this one. So this code down here had better have access to the environment in which glob is defined. Okay? So that's why what you did with the first half of your brain makes sense to the second half of your brain. We need E2 to point to E1 so that this procedure can use glob. Okay? Even though glob isn't in the current environment, which, remember, is G, right, at the time we're doing this procedure call. OK, so now we've made this frame. We've made a new environment by making a frame and having the frame extend an old environment. Now what? What's the next step? Yes? Exactly. Evaluate the body of the procedure we're calling. What procedure are we calling? This one. because we said make count. We looked that up in the global environment. We found this procedure. Here's its body. It's a let. Well, a let makes a procedure and then invokes it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a procedure. Parameter, loc, body, set bang list, right? No, lambda, another lambda. Right. Right bubble points to 3 choices. Who thinks it points to G? Who thinks it points to E1? Who thinks it points to E2? All right, you're learning. Good job. OK, I made the procedure. This is, remember, we're doing a let. A let consists of a lambda and a procedure call. So now I'm going to call the procedure. In E3, we're going to take the parameter loc, and we're going to bind it to the actual argument value that we get by evaluating the expression 0, which could have done some more stuff to the diagram. We could have had a more complicated initializer for that variable. But as it turns out, all we have is good old self-evaluating 0. So it's easy to evaluate, and we can do that. Now I have to extend an environment. Which one? E2. Yep. Why? Because this right bubble points to it. We're calling this procedure. The right bubble points here. This points here. OK. We've made the frame. Now we can carry out the body, which is a lambda. So parameters, none. Body, and this is where it's set bang, etc. The right bubble points to the current environment at the moment of creating the procedure, which is this one. Now, do I invoke this procedure? Who thinks I invoke it now? Who thinks I don't invoke it now? Good. It's a lambda, not a let. If it were a let, I'd invoke it right away. But it's just a lambda. So we return this value from this procedure call, which returns that value from this procedure call, which finally comes back to this define. And so now we are able to say C1 is this procedure right here. OK?